almost 3/4 of it is handheld, and that's a huge adjustment. In that time, of course, cameras have become lighter, so they're much lighter and easier to work with. But as I have found, I work with the camera body is much lighter, but the lenses weigh the same. I now have onboard monitors. I have onboard, remote focus and iris control motors. I have all sorts of other things. So for me, carrying the camera, as I do now, and I'm 63, but I carry that camera a lot. It is supposed to be lighter. It's not really lighter, but directors now see it as very much a directorial style, that they like to have, a little bit of hunting for the character or looking for them, either with shallow focus or with camera operating. Oh, there's the face, and as if we've got, oh, there's Finn. I found him, and then there's me. So that responsive and I suppose more fluid camera operating style has become a style.
That's so interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
I noticed that actually when I was looking at your rake as well.
Oh yeah. And yet rake would be one of the more conservative shot series, and I would get a lot of comments about that, and the reason why it was shot in such a conservative style was that the writers of that project and the director and the showrunner, they're writers, and they want every word that they've written on the screen because they're very proud of it, and they've got no interest in what I'm doing. So I learned to, as a self-defense mechanism, to make sure I had 2 cameras running always, and made sure that I was on the faces for the words, and that became almost like a building block style.
That's really interesting. I was wondering, if anybody would like to write a question up that they think might relate to this, that they could start asking Martin some questions. Yes. And so Martin can respond to them, and then at the end Finn will have a conversation and Martin will show some of the works that Finn has been doing with him, some of the storyboarding. So if anybody
just to say something on that, having said that, there are those, it's almost like 2 styles. There's the old Hollywood style, and then there's the new fresher, evolved moving camera style. They still share the same grammar. And that's what's really interesting out of the storyboarding process. And I used to do storyboards way back, and then they just disappeared. No one wanted to have storyboards for about 25 years. And now they've come back into vogue. And I think it's because the filmmaking process now we shoot so quickly.
Yeah.
It seems to be chaos because, get a shot of that, get a shot of that. Yeah, get that. Now, for a director to have in front of them a couple of pages with the key 10 shots that they need for their day's work, is they hold on to that like that's the safety line. It's if, okay, no matter how chaotic it gets, as long as I get the close-up on my lead actor when he pulls the pin in the grenade, or when the guy standing opposite, he realizes the man standing opposite is holding a gun to his head or something. I want to see it in his eyes, and I want to see that reaction. I can live with anything else, but I must have these key elements. And that's why storyboarding has become, I suppose, a very important touchstone.
Could someone put a question up?
What you got?
Okay, there you go. Okay, so Gia, you've got the first one. Can you unlock your sound?
Yeah, sorry.
I got you.
While helping the director achieve their ideas, how do you put your own creative ideas in the film?
How do I help the director bring their creative ideas forward? Yeah. It's an interesting process because I have worked now with a lot of writer directors. So a writer lives with the images to them, which they keep to themselves for a long time. So sometimes they have a very specific visual style or series of shots in their heads because they've always seen it that way. And I find the first things that I have to do with a director these days is to really talk it through and say, why do you need this shot? When you describe that to me, which is a really important shot for you, I don't understand it. Can you please explain to me in words why that's so important to you? And sometimes I feel like I'm a therapist, but I'm trying to draw them out on whether it's a memory from their childhood or it's an image that they saw of a particular artist or something from a film. And then that gives me an open door to walk through that and start to talk about their favorite photographers, their favorite filmmakers, their favorite writers. And I like to think that sometimes I really would prefer my directors didn't come at me with, Tarantino or Scorsese or, I'd rather that we don't feel that we're deriving our images from the halcyon years of cinema, but we are creating them from the script. And sometimes that you just need to spend time with your director and get to know them really well. And sometimes that's when the best ideas come to you, and because they are free of any other outside reference except from the director's head. And that's a great process, but sometimes it's very difficult too, because they can be very either shy or they can be slow to share their ideas. Particularly novelists or when you hear of a script that's been developed over 10 years, you realize that, oh my God, that director has spent way too much time with that script. I'm going to have to spend a lot of time, opening the doors to get through.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Elena, Gia, can you put your mute on now? And Elena, can you ask your question?
Yeah, I would like to know how you started your career, and when did you find that you wanted to be a cinematographer, and when and where did you learn the most about cinematography?
That's a really good question. It's a really good question because I started as a news cameraman, so I would film fires or car crashes or all number of crime or political events and protests. And when I was very young, when I was 20, and then I travelled around the world as a documentary filmmaker, and I think that the combination of the two things kept me very aware of how a story works, because often you're trying to make a film about a tribe of Indigenous Australians living in Northern Territory or living in the outback, and trying to as a 70s white male sort of looking at their world, you have to look for key elements that begin a story or at least open the door so that we who know nothing of their lives can step in and share that experience in the same way that you might, pick up a novel, and that writer is trying to bridge that gap between their culture and your culture. And I think I learned more from sitting around doing documentaries than anything, just because observing is so important. And I say that a lot to directors now. Even on very, very big budget films, you put all of the elements together, you build the set, you get the actors there, it may not be the perfect weather, but things happen. And on the day you get a great opportunity to gather all that imagery, and things can happen that are not scripted, and they can be so valuable. The last film that I did, we built a set in a reservoir, so a water catchment facility out in the west of Sydney. We built 8 buildings, and then it rained for about 10 days, and so those buildings were floating.
Wow.
And they were supposed to be the outback in the middle of a drought. It was supposed to be desert.
Oh, no.
And the buildings were actually floating. So, but we filmed it, and we put drones on it. We filmed it, and became a fantastic dream sequence. There's something that
Oh, wow, that's so interesting.
something that you don't plan for. You still have to keep your documentary eye open for.
Yeah, that's so important. That's fantastic.
So in answer to that question, I learned so much from documentary, and also from working with good drama cameramen as well. But I didn't do a lot of that. I went straight from documentary camera work straight into drama.
And Martin, where did you study?
I studied at RMIT in Melbourne, so the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, which it was the first year of a multimedia course, and it was in 1973, so there was very, very little going on. But I made a film in the first year, and then I jumped ship before I did not complete the course, but I went straight into a job in the industry.
And also, is that where you met PJ and
Jocelyn? Yeah.
Jocelyn?
Yeah, they were studying at AFTRS, so at the Australian Film and Television School up here in Sydney. But we had mutual friends. I don't know how it happened, but they had set up in Melbourne, and they just asked around who would be a decent cameraman for them to work with. And someone mentioned my name, and we met and got on really, really well. And I was a very confident young filmmaker. I might have been, 23 or something, but as far as I was concerned, I'd lived 3 lifetimes, so I was the confident guy, and they were the new guy. Even though they were only 3 or 4 years younger than me, I felt, when I look back, I can't believe I was as confident as I was, because I didn't know anywhere near what I thought I knew.
But that's an interesting point, though. Confidence, and really, but learning a lot is a really important thing. Getting experience, getting experience.
Getting experience behind the camera, and that's a tough thing I'm assuming you're all wanting to be filmmakers and directors, but if you are writers, never stop writing. And if you get a chance to direct anything, just do it, because those hours behind the camera mean so much when you do get to do your dream project.
Yeah. I'm going to get Maggie to ask a question now.
So, what's the most unforgettable experience during your DP's career?
I've had a few that I would count as unforgettable. I did the visual effects cinematography on Revenge of the Sith, which was one of the Star Wars films with George Lucas when he was in Sydney. So George Lucas did 3 Star Wars films in Sydney, and I worked with him on one of those, and that was one of those someone pinch me moments, because I'm having a wonderful experience making like constructing scenes and blocking them with a person who's considered one of the best in world history. But I also really enjoyed doing Peter Pan, which was another film I did visual effects and second unit cinematography on.
Great. Maggie, do you want to ask your second question?
Yeah. So, could you please share some lighting skills with us, like when you're shooting the scene and the lighting set?
Yeah. Look, the lighting thing is it's a huge subject, and it's hard to ever let go of it. It's hard to ever feel like you completely understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come at it from a documentary filmmaker's perspective, you have a different view of it than even coming from a studio-based system. I look at, when I was placing the camera here, I made sure that I was looking, I've got a lovely
good lighting, good backlight.
Yeah. And so I've learned that if I go into shadow, I'm going to look much older and bleaker. You learn tricks about where to place light, and I look at faces all the time, and I'm learning from them and saying, that person can handle a sharp side light. That person just needs to be have absolute soft light front on, and then, or if someone has has jowls, you don't want to put a light coming from behind through there, or else it picks up those imperfections. But those things are learnt over a long period of time, but picked up. You can accelerate yourself through the learning process even by looking at current issues of Vogue magazine, or good, a magazine that has great photos, or a contemporary photographer puts out a beautiful coffee table book. You can work your way through those images and just meditate for a moment on why is that so fantastic. And I'm looking at images now that younger cinematographers come out with, and I'm thinking, wow, I could never do that. And yet the reason why they've arrived at it is a different understanding of colour, and also a wider range of exposure options. Because when I was coming up through the ranks, exposure had to be mid-range, because you couldn't guarantee that someone's TV set was going to be able to pick it up, or that or the projector in the cinema was going to have enough lumens to carry the image. Nowadays, that's not the problem at all. It's never a problem. You've got such a broad range of contrast ratio that I can build I can put interesting things down in the dark areas, and I can still get control of the highlights as well. That creates a broader palette, if you'd like, a broader palette for an artist.
That's really interesting. I'm going to move on to William. Thank you very much, Maggie. Move on to William now. And William, who is the person in the group who's most interested in being a cinematographer?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
William, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah. Would you mind to share some suggestions for the students who want to get a position in the industry? That's my first question.
Yeah, sorry.
Didn't quite get that.
So share something about the industry, getting into the industry, or?
Yeah, some what you did when were your students for your career?
Mm-hmm.
I think when you find a position in industry first. When did you find your position in the industry first?
Yeah, that's my first question. But
yeah. The toughest thing was getting started, but I went into I applied for a job as a cinematographer in a news organisation, so attached to a television station, but they were shooting film, and I assumed that thousands of people must have applied for it, but the reality was there were only about 3 or 4. So what I observe after 30 odd years in this business is that there are so many more people in it, but there are many more options. So the system that I walked into doesn't really exist anymore, But I have assistants that work with me. I have 5 separate assistants that work just in camera with me, And their start was they walked straight out of a film course and they sent me an email, and then I got them on set for, a couple of days. And then we, if we can't place them, we recommend them to other people. So there is now a very fluid system of almost like a loose apprenticeship, which did not exist when I was young. Then it was an industrial apprenticeship that, where you were constantly employed for a period of time. That's not there anymore. But look, it's always hard and it always seems impossible, but amazingly, doors open if you just persist.
And that's the thing, if you're wanting to do it, you've got to put yourself out there. And when you have people come to you, Martin, with the idea of trying to get work experience, do they send you this? They send you a letter or an email, but do they also send you examples of their work?
That is not essential. For me, most important these days is, yes, you have an understanding and a respect for the camera, but also that you are a good, that you're an easy sort of person to work with. I look for personalities, that people that work in well in groups, that will work, really well with another, in a team. I've had many assistants who I've worked with that had their training at McDonald's, that because they work in teams, and they know how to give instructions and take instructions and do something with it. There's a lot more respect on film crews these days, and a lot more, I suppose, understanding of the communication process, because we have to work so quickly. We have to rely on each other. We don't have a lot of time to explain what it is we have to do. So when I say to my assistant, you look after this, I have to agree that whatever they do to make whatever I've asked them to do, I've got to support them in there. I can't scream at people. I can't get angry. I've got to encourage them to be good people. And that comes down to not necessarily technical knowledge. It comes down to just people skills.
Yeah, that's that's great.
Thanks.
Yeah,
and also dealing with directors. I mean, they've got and actors. Actors are not easy people to be around when they're when they're concentrating. They've got high levels of concentration, and directors are tense. They're sort of they're angry. So cameras just got to be very, very still. We get used to it.
In relationship to that, Martin, we were talking about this just before everybody came on, and it's really, how do you, in a way, the cameraman is the eyes of the director, and that importance of being the eyes of the director. And you were also talking about different kinds of directors. So you have directors who are coming from a position of being writers, directors that are coming from storytelling is a really major part of what they're doing, or directors who have a very, very visual experience, or directors who have a very emotive response to making film.
Yeah.
So what do you see? I mean, obviously each time it's a very different relationship, but what do you see as the major issue for you as a cinematographer with a director?
Well, it probably goes back to those early comments, which is that you've really got to spend time with your director and get to know them as a person. And I find these days a lot of them they have to be ambitious. They don't get where they are without being ambitious. But then when they get to the point where they're making the film, they've got to understand that it's time that the actor is elevated. You're not the star of the show. The actor is the star of the show. You're behind the scenes encouraging them to get their idea forward. But sometimes I think directors just misunderstand what their role is, and that they can be a really warm, creative, nurturing force on a film that can make a much better film if they just support the people that are out there doing their craft every day. And you think about what an actor does over the course of say 50 days while a film is made, and they've got their characters got to go through an arc and a transition. Every day is different, and they come at it from a deep emotional connection to the script. And the director is there. The director has got to try as much as possible to be a calming force, but often they're not, because because they have other pressures. So it falls to the camera people to just, it's just a very simple shot. This is the camera.
Yeah.
You stand there. Now let's just see how. And often it's raining when it shouldn't be, or there's noise when there shouldn't be, or someone's having an emotional breakdown, or someone's late to set, or whatever it is. There's always a reason why it doesn't go smoothly, but you've got to exude an atmosphere of calm. And I think that's probably the best thing a director of photography can do.
Yeah.
Be that person that they turn to you and go, "What do we do?" And they go, "It's okay. I've seen worse."
That's brilliant. You are great at that kind of thing, though, Martin. That is your character. You're a perfect person for it.
Now, do you want to see some storyboards?
Yeah. So we're going to bring Finn in now.
Finn, there we go.
Yeah. Let's push the old man over.
Where is that? How you doing?
So Finn's going to come in now. Let me just introduce Finn a little bit about Finn. Finn is at the moment studying at National Art School. So he's studying painting and drawing, and is a beautiful drawer and painter. And so he has been co-opted by Martin to become a collaborator inside his filmmaking process. And Finn has also made film and does make film, but at the moment is focusing on his drawing more than filmmaking. Would that be right, Finn?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So today, Finn has just started his first class online at the National Art School.
Yeah, on Zoom.
Yeah. So you all know what he's going through. So he's just his first experience.
Yeah. So can you?
So Finn, can I ask you a question? How did this come about that you started making the drawings for Martin?
Well, I started about a year or so ago. I haven't been doing it for too long, but I mean, it was a great opportunity, seeing as I enjoy drawing so much. Well, he's in the film industry.
So what does he say to you? What does he tell you when he wants to make something?
I do some bad sketching, and then
maybe I'll share this. I'll give you the screen to share. Hang on a minute. I'll offer you the screen.
Yeah. I'm just going to get a glass of water.
Yeah.
Do you want anything?
No, I'm fine. Yes.
So do you know how to share the screen, Finn? If you open it, says at the bottom share screen, and you can take over the screen.
Really?
And then the green button, you go share screen, and then you can choose which screen you want to look at.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Well, Martin and I would read through the script typically, and at times, I'll show you some of Martin's. Here are a few examples. He's pretty amazing at drawing too.
Oh, really?
He's always got a fantastic idea as to what direction he wants to take the scenes and compositions in. But half the time I'm there coming up with these.
Well, this is an interesting point, because here, what I find is that I'm doing sketches which are like this, which I think are great, but the director never understands them. They look at them and they think I'm mad. So they thought those hands looked like underwater coral. So I do these shots and then they can't understand them. So then Finn takes those shots and makes them more professional. So they understand this because it's got shading and it's got, they can see that that's a train and they can see that that's a guitar, whereas they can't seem to make any sense of mine. I don't know why. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
What was the film that you were working on here, Martin?
Well, this film that we're halfway through called Wakefield, which is a BBC project, and it has a lot of dream sequences and flashbacks in it. So it's set, part of it's set in India, and this scene here is perfect. You can probably make sense of that. That's there. That's a
tent.
There's a flood, and those people are actually on a roof.
Oh yeah.
That's what I've done. And in the background there, we're going to film the rapids sequence. So there's a whole lot of flooded buildings that have to be built that are there, and we're shooting in the whitewater course, part of the Olympic course that was built out of Penrith, and we're going to film that there. So that's a real person in the water. It's a pretend baby. Those people will be on top of a roof. Well, then, Finn takes those sketches and makes them more understandable. In this one here, we've got a woman who's she's in a dream, and she's walking through a jungle, and she thinks she's basically hearing a lion growling, and she's trying to work her way through the foliage to find that lion. So they wanted some ideas for shadows on faces and what that might look like. So Finn was able to take my initial sketches and just put some color and make it a bit more.
So inside of this then, Martin, do you have, are you at this point having a conversation with the designers?
It's usually a roundtable conversation with designer and directors and showrunners, and the showrunner is usually the writer. So all of the ideas just get put down on the table, and Finn's been to a number of these meetings. They usually go for about 9 hours each. I did one meeting that went for 27 hours over 3 days. They take a long time, and you sketch things out as you go in this sort of form. See this one here? There's the woman that was going through the foliage comes out, and she sees the lion, right? So now that's what I'm doing, and then I sort of, we try and flesh it out so it looks a bit more, so we're making more sense of it. But at the beginning, you're just talking general ideas, and then at some stage, it has to become real. Or like it has to, eventually you've got to draw a line, or is that an eye? So we're talking about things like, we hear the lion, but do we ever see the lion?
Right.
And then, of course, there was an hour conversation about whether we should actually see a lion.
Yeah.
Maybe with something that looks like a lion, but it's not really a lion. Well, how do we do that?
Yeah. How do you do that then?
Well, then what we chose to do was to do a lion's eye, so we never see the full head of the lion, and then that's the foliage hiding the lion.
But so if you do that though, Martin, if you do shoot the lion, where do you shoot the lion? Do you go to the zoo to shoot the lion, or
you can buy footage of a lion, but it won't have that foliage. So can we do the foliage then against a green screen?
Yeah.
And do a CGI superimposition, which is what we did in the end. And in this one here, they decided, maybe we should just have a fully revealed lion, and then she reaches out as if to touch the fur. And I said, so we're going, how can we do that? Well, we decided to do a little, see that bit of ivy and a bit of creeper there and all of that. So we're partially obscuring it, and it's in a darkened part of a jungle, and we're using that as almost a divider. So we got the lion, we bought the license to use the lion from Getty Images, and it was against green, so we can put that anywhere. And then we filmed the actress here, Harriet Dyer, in the full location. So she's acting in a full frame minus the lion.
Yeah.
And then we put the lion in later. So all those things have to be talked about, and that's where I do these sketchy sketches, and then Finn finishes them off and makes them a bit more.
Because it's so detailed. I mean, each image has to be thought about.
Every single part, because what you're doing Yeah. Because what you're doing is basically an inventory of components that go into the frame, you know. So you've got to look at, you know, I mean, these are very, very rudimentary sketches, you know. I mean, from that, you're doing these sketches that, you know, you get like 30 seconds to do them, and there's 8 people at a table, there's 9 people at the table, or that's person's, you know, Rudy's asleep on a pillow, or and you're just smashing out these shots, and then
you've got to work fast too.
You do have to work fast. So when you're in those meetings with Martin, Finn, are you doing sketches as well?
I am. During that time, I like to draw on paper. I find that it's the easier way to put out ideas quickly. And then I like to move it over I use Procreate on the iPad.
Okay, that was a question from William as well. He wanted to know what program you used.
Yeah, so I use Procreate, which I think is amazing, because you can undo mistakes and move things around. And do you guys know about it? Paul?
Do any of you use Procreate? William?
Show a picture.
Oh, sorry, my microphone is something happening.
So have you used Procreate, William?
Yes.
And how did you find it? Did you find it really useful?
Yeah, it's pretty useful. It's pretty good for painting, but I know the Procreate because for my bachelor degree, I'm a painting student.
Yeah.
I have some painting course about for my bachelor degree. That is why I use Procreate.
That's a good thing to do. Do you have any images of your? I mean, it'd be interesting at the end later to maybe if you've got any images of your Procreate. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, Finn, you were going to say?
No. I was just.
You're going to show us it. Show us the Procreate.
Oh, show you the Procreate?
Can we put that on there? Yeah. Or
I'm not sure we can get it
unless we just
bring up your laptop or your iPad, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Open it up. Yeah, here we go.
So you work often on your iPad when you're doing this?
Yes, yeah, most of the time, for sure.
I just show them these sketches.
These things?
Yeah. You see that? Did you see this one, Robin, on Instagram?
I haven't been. I only go once a week on Instagram.
Well, Finn has been doing a series of sketches. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And that's from Procreate.
Yeah. So he's doing a series of them around the house, but it's obviously very detailed, that one.
Yeah. So do you go from a photograph first?
So I do all of these.
That's so cool.
That's me resting.
And do you start from a photograph, or do you start from?
No, all from life. I try to.
That's great.
Photographs.
One of the clock is really.
Show us some more.
Yeah, here we go. These objects, I guess. But just looking at it, he's.
That's really nice. That's great.
Exploring a style.
Yeah. And how do you think, Finn? How do you think that that's changing your approach to drawing and painting?
Well, I picked up this style of practice 2 weeks ago, and I really do feel like it's opened up.
It's a new style.
Yeah, it's a new style, and I can bring it into painting depending on how I control the paint, and I eventually really like to be able to do that. But it helps with color and realize.
Yeah. And how about and Finn also working with Martin on these projects now, doing the storyboards. Are you finding that's making you think more in a filmic way?
Oh yeah, all the time. I feel like I've been thinking that way from when I first started, only because I've worked with Martin before quite a few things, and just watch him as he thinks and passes it on to me.
Yeah.
But, yeah, definitely.
And do you think that you would like to start? Would you like to after studying? Can you imagine yourself going into film?
Possibly.
Good question.
Good question.
What do you think?
I'm not too sure if that's the direction I want to go to. But yeah, definitely, I could maybe see myself.
I mean, because you've watched it. I mean, it's interesting for these other kids. You know, you've watched because I'll just explain that Finn's mother is also an actor, a very famous Australian actor, you know, really brilliant actress. And she's one of my oldest friends as well. And it's interesting because Finn's lived inside that world his whole life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so to understand the great creativity, but also the complexity of living inside as artists, basically.
Yeah.
So, what do you think?
Yeah.
He knows what goes on.
He knows what goes on.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you're very, you're trained up in a way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But also just being comfortable around the film set is a very different, you know, is a big, like it's a big hurdle, you know, to even know what everyone does or how the whole system works. And that's sometimes the hardest thing for a director, is learning what it is that everyone, what a grip does, or what a boom swinger does, and, you know, or the etiquette around the film set.
That's exactly, I mean, that's a part of what this course is just trying to expose students to a little bit, because, I mean, I don't know how many of you have actually been on a professional film set. Have any of you done that? You have. And what did you do? Okay, Alana, what did you do on the professional film set?
I was assisting the sound recordist with the sound recording.
And was that recently?
Last year in July.
Okay.
Whereabouts was that, Alana?
It's in Sydney. It's called God, I can't remember.
Was it Canal?
Was Channel 7, I think.
Oh yeah. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. People are nice. I think people in this industry are generally pretty easygoing.
Yeah, I think you have to be these days. But that's, you know, sometimes being assistant to the sound person is a really great way of seeing everything, because you're right in the middle of it, and you're dealing with actors as well as you know, as well as all the other components. So you get a great insight.
And because that's what Gia is really interested in, the sound.
Yeah.
Oh, serious? Okay.
Yeah, I have worked in the industry.
In recording.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
This field. I'm the sound effect editor. Yeah.
You're a sound editor.
Oh yeah, that's such an interesting area.
Yeah. Sorry.
So much great work done in that area. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I have worked about 4 years, I think.
Really? How fantastic. Oh, wow. So do you want to go deeper into the sound side of things? Yeah. Oh, wow, how exciting. That's really exciting. It's just a complex world too.
And it's so important, sound like visuals, you know, and it's interesting because sound and costumes often kind of are the forgotten, you know. I just, my friends who work as sound people don't remember that sound is so important inside of any film. You know, it changes the emotion and the intensity of the film. Yeah.
Oh yeah. When it's not being done well, you really notice it. But we get so used to fantastic sound work these days.
That's right. And how much, because it's something that's done after everybody is away from the set. You know, you've got this. It's a very private world in many. I mean, not the recording of it, but the putting together. If you're adding on sound afterwards.
Yeah. I agree.
So, Gia, did you do sound? Did you do actually working on the set like Alana, where you were recording, or did you do the sound after?
After, yeah.
After. So you're not actually on the set.
I don't really like on the side.
And those are the things that you have to find out. Where do you want to be inside of, if you're wanting to work in film, where do you want to be? And that's what we've all spoken about. Like Gia is very clear that she wants to work in the post-production sound.
Yeah.
William wants to work in film, cinematography. Maggie is interested in directing as well as producing, and Alana's much more directed towards production, aren't you? Yeah. So these are the kind of zones that everybody's found so far.
And I think everyone finds their niche, and it's not necessarily where they started. And my very first experiences were as a film editor, and I thought I would be a wonderful film editor. And then I realised I didn't like fluorescent lighting and being stuck inside all day.
Yeah.
And so I started to go out on jobs and realised I was actually really good at it. It was something I didn't know about myself until I was in that situation.
I think that's the thing, you know, that's why experience is really important, when you can go out and experience being on a set so you understand how it functions.
Yeah, it's true.
Can I just ask one last question? Or if anybody else has got a last question, just think about it for a minute while I ask mine. I want to ask Finn, out of all of these drawings, which one do you think depicts what you wanted it to depict the best?
Okay. The first thing, I think the simpler they are and the more they can...
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably not.
The less cluttered ones.
The less cluttered ones are nice. Arrows I find help a lot with.
That's interesting, because that was like that footstep thing before, where the feet were.
Yeah, exactly.
But you've got to be so specific now, don't you?
Yeah, that's it.
And because directors find it really hard to imagine this, or you know, if you're delivering it to half a dozen people, no one shares the same visual language. You know, it's really got to be spelled out to them.
Yeah,
that's where Finn's work is pretty good, because he puts depth into it.
Because there's a thing where, I mean, there's still a looseness in these drawings, and it's like you don't want to lock it off totally. Would that be true?
That's true, because it's never finalized. Like, the director can change anything at any time, and it's best to always be
a little bit floaty.
Around your drawings. Sure.
But it also means you've got to know your lenses too. You know, that's important. Yeah. So Finn and I talk a lot about, you know, what lens that could be. That's for me, that's a 35 mil, but that's a 50. You know, and so these are lenses. These are lenses that I have in the lens box.
You wouldn't write that on the page. You wouldn't write that at all. You just know
for some people I would, some directors, but other directors would. You know, as soon as they see that written, they go, "Well, that's the last thing I'm going to do." You know, so they're not going to let anyone tell them what to do. So I can lead them, and then I'll turn around and say, "What do you reckon that is? Do you reckon that's a 65?" And I go, "Yeah, 65. That'd be great. Yeah, great, good." So we've had that conversation, but Finn and I know what we've already had that conversation, but we just don't want to spell it out. You know.
No. You don't want to lock it off totally. That's an interesting thing. So it's a bit of a fluidity there. There's a little bit more of a looseness in there. Yeah,
and also sometimes your location doesn't, even though we knew what this location was, and we had, you know, photos, which I think we showed there, it's still different when you get there on the day. It's still...
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. We've got stills of everything, and we're trying to put everything in the right spot. And in this case... we're going to, as a green screen, we're going to put a green screen in there, and we're going to do a separate element, which is a train approaching.
Oh, okay.
And this woman steps forward with a pram, and it looks like it's going to go into the path of the approaching train. So all of those things have got to be spelled out, even though we have it really, like we can measure all those things. You get there on the day and it changes marginally. Everything changes a little bit. So you've got to be aware of the important things that you must get. And that's why I think storyboards are great.
Yeah.
Because they go, okay, I get the sense of it. That's Rudy turning and going, oh my God, that pram is going to fall in the path of that train. I have to do something. So that's the intent. Now, if you You might change the lens, you might change the positioning of the camera. As long as you get the intent of that shot, you've got the elements, because just things just change, because they just do, you know. But we like to think that we can design it up as accurately as as an architect or a surveyor might, but of course it just never quite works out that way.
Oh, there was another question I had. Has anybody else got a question they want to ask?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I have noticed that you're shooting the wake field at the Blue Mountain before the Corona.
Oh yes,
Yeah. How is that going?
Well, we've got, I think, 5 more weeks to go, which is a shame, because we've got one actor who's based in London. So he's gone back to London, and I've got an actress who's gone back to Sri Lanka. I can't see how they can get back, you know, like before, I don't know, October. So I can't see that film going back into production.
Wow.
Quite some time, you know. And we were thinking, oh, maybe July. But when you think about it, it's going to be very complicated.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So so William, are you stuck here, or obviously you're in quarantine? But are you heading back to China, or are you going to stick around and study?
I will stay here.
Yeah.
Alana, did you have a question?
I do have a pretty big question, but I still want to ask. What is your approach of networking to like start up the career in the industry?
I would use every contact that you know, get email addresses and email people. And with the email, I would say the 2 paragraphs that you write are more important than your CV. I would put your personality into it, and I would, you know, express how you're committed to being a filmmaker and you really need a break. And I don't know anyone that ignores emails like that. You know, if I can't employ someone, I will pass the email on to someone who might be able to help, and these emails get sent around, or, you know, we exchange and we share, and it may not happen immediately, but I've got an assistant who started with me on this last project, and he has been annoying me for about 3 years. So
yeah.
I was, you know, and he's a really quiet guy, and I thought, oh my God, he's just so incredibly quiet. I don't know that he'll be the right person, but he was just so persistent that I gave him a job, and so he's being paid, although we're obviously not shooting at the moment. But he turns out to be technically quite brilliant and really smart. But I didn't hire him because I had any proof of that. I'm only hiring him because he needs a break, and then he takes that experience of 3 months working with me, and I write him a letter, and he goes to someone else, and he says, I work with Marty, you can ring him, and so it just happens that way, because it is an itinerant life, and they're always looking for someone, always.
And so when you say you write to someone, I mean, really, in a way, you need to write to someone because you know their work and you think that their work is appropriate to you. I think, would you say that would be an important thing?
I think it is, but I would broaden the scope of that inquiry, and I say to a lot of camera assistants who are looking to meet other cinematographers, I say I would recommend them joining local guilds here. Like we have the Australian Cinematographers Society. You get on their website, send them an email, say you're visiting, you'd just like to come along to meetings and just sit in the background and meet one or two people, you will always be welcome. And you turn up to, I'm going on to a Zoom meeting tonight with the Australian Cinematographers Society, and there could be anywhere between 12 and 300 people on that, depending. We're listening to a cinematographer talk about the work she's doing in the States, and there'll be people that I don't know, and there'll be, people who don't know my work, and I can, there's always these forums, there are always gatherings, they're out there.
That is a really great reference, I think. And
for directors, the same thing, and for sound people as well. There's always somewhere to make contact, because, and it can be the actor guild, which here is AACTA, which is the Academy. And if you contact the Academy and you just write them a direct email and say, and not just actor, but also Screen Australia, and say, this is my name, I'm here for 3 months, I want to meet cinematographers, or I want to meet designers, or I want to meet sound recorders, can you help me? They will help you. If you're direct, if you just say, I need your help, that no one will put that email in the trash.
No, that is a great positive action for everyone. So I think we'll let you know how we go with that.
Yeah, please. Yeah, keep in touch. And
we'll do something. We'll do a little project at the end where everybody makes contact with someone, so that, difficult at this time, but even in this difficult time, people are still making contact and communicating with one another, and it's even more important at the moment.
Yeah, always.
Anyway, we're coming to the end now. We've actually gone over time, and I don't want to use up any more of your time. And I'd just like to say thank you very much for your generosity, Martin, and also Finn. It was very inspiring and really interesting to hear your position as a cinematographer, Australian, a very significant and important cinematographer from Australia.
Great pleasure. Just in signing off, if I can just say this, that if you are filmmakers and you've got ideas and you just never stop writing or pushing yourself forward, because there's always about 20 other people who are pushing as hard or harder. So, but it's never hopeless. It is always possible. And I can tell you that if you just stay on your feet and keep working, opportunities open up without a doubt.
That's a great way to end. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
My great pleasure. Good luck with everyone.
Yeah, wonderful to see you all, both.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Can I get everybody to stay with us?
Yeah.
We'll say goodbye to you two, and we will continue on. See you soon.
Bye.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was very, very special, I think.
Mm-hmm.